Okay, now we should. There we go. I had done that, but sometimes the software does silly things. Thank you very much. Let's see who. Oh yeah, Ultimate Warrior. Thank you very much. Okay, I think everybody should be able to hear me now. So, hello, Ultimate Warrior, Tamu, Dark Illusion, Lee, David Null. Here we go. JC, I don't even know why you join us. I really don't. But, I should actually put this in my new. I had my birthday last week. One person remembered. So, and they sent me this really nice owl mug. All the owls kind of have different herbs coming out of the tops of the head. It's very fun. Hi, Vern. Okay, JC. Yeah, so it was really interesting to get a whole bunch of thumbs down on my last video. You know, who think that people would be offended by calling out pretenders, but yeah, I know what you mean, Doc. So Vern, I'm really glad you can join us. And so a little bit of a provocative title, Clueless in Creation. And what do I mean by clueless in creation? It kind of goes back to the maps, the mapping thing. Yeah, it is real dangerous. That's Doc Lucia saying being real is dangerous. Well, that's what happened to the Gnostics. As this Middle Eastern psychosis called Yahwism was breaking out into that area, and they were calling nonsense on it. They found themselves on the wrong end of a sword. Hello, Niche. And that's the sword really cut us off from creation. But I'm just gonna let the room breathe. I don't want to dive quite into it yet. I want to let's listen to, get a few people here, get myself grounded. Yeah, it's like Lee says, calling out the fuckery will get you backlash, but it's just interesting that there's backlash on YouTube. I mean, what who's offended by this kind of stuff? Oh yeah, the Zodiakim. Well, JC, it depends on who you're calling Gnostics. That's part of what I'm trying to parse out here. There's the Nag Hammadi text have a kind of get called Gnostic texts, and I don't consider them Gnostic texts. I consider them texts with Gnostic influences in them. So to me, there's a lot of pretending in the Nag Hammadi text, because they're pretending that they actually know, that they actually have a clue. And the Nag Hammadi texts are a big part of Clueless in Creation, because they've lost their ancient stream, and they're playing with new ideas. And I really believe this is kind of like the people who, obviously the people who were writing the Nag Hammadi text were not the initiates of the mysteries. That's real clear. So And to become, to become an initiate in the mysteries meant you had to dedicate yourself to a bit of a path to be ready for that revelation. And there's a lot of people who are always looking, for the shortcuts. Matter of fact, I read something recently where somebody had asked for, is there like a short version for me to get up to speed on this? It's like, is there a Reader's Digest version for me to get up to speed? The only way to get up to speed is, dedicate yourself. Yeah, the burning of Alexandria was certainly major fuckery. It was an attempt to. It wasn't an attempt. It was a very successful campaign to make the ancient world go away, because there was a new revelation that had started in the deserts of the Sinai Desert, and having texts that were thousands and thousands of years old, written by really intelligent people, and initiates, was very dangerous to the morons that had developed in that area. It's in people like, I guess, Jordan Peterson, who I don't really enjoy listening to, but apparently he's been, in some cases, has gone after the very delicate question of IQ and the implications of IQ and abstract thought. I'm not a big fan of IQ tests because it comes up with numbers. To me, nobody really needs to have IQ tests. When you're moving around amongst people and you're engaging them in conversation, it's real clear who can think and who can't think very well. It's clear. It's real obvious. Now they say we don't have much to go on. I think John Lash has done about an amazing a job as anybody could, retrieving material, and some of it was retrieval from history, and some of it had to be done shamanically. It's okay. The thumbs down or no do not matter to me, because I know we're. It's kind of like the thumbs down is a little bit of the intelligence test. I see those thumbs downs, and to me, they're it's like, oh, they're just disagreeing with you. They don't have, it's, to me, to disagree, you got to have something, you got to bring something on your side. And that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of cluelessness. Is people might say, oh, I don't like that. So now I go, fine, what do you got? What do you have? They got nothing. They really do. They have nothing. Maybe they watch some TV shows. I mean, there's whole groups of men in their 20s and 30s who spend hours a week playing video games because that's where they feel like men. And I consider that the lost. That's where we've lost a whole bunch of men to video games. And then even the corruption of it. I mean, I've had people engage me about, they might think magic is real if they could do what they can do as a magus in a certain game or something, not realizing that all this magic that gets put in these games is bogus magic. That's not real magic. It's not even based on real concepts of magic. So, and that to me, it points to cluelessness. People don't really know where they are. For some reason, I'm not really interested in figuring it out, so we'll just watch TV and play some video games. And so, and it all comes down to a creation myth. Hello, Callan. Everybody on this planet had a creation myth. If you go in, you could go to some of the lesser sophisticated people in jungles, and they have a creation myth. And then you can go to some very sophisticated people, like those people in Ecuador that wear the white, I forget their names. And they have a very deep creation myth. They're taking care of Pachamama. So the very fact that they understand it's about the mama means that they're tuned in. They get it. And that's how the ancient world all knew that we arose from nature. It was obvious, where else did we come from? And then we come into the alternative creation myths. And much of them are about the fuckery of genetic manipulation. And that's where Genesis comes in. There was two videos that Sarah Westall put out recently, and I guess this is a guy who's seen books in the Vatican Library. And he was plainly stating that Genesis is the written record of a specific family that came out of Samaria, and specific families and priesthood. And so basically, the whole Genesis thing is about a specific tribe, a specific group, and their contract with an alien off-planet deity that was best left alone, but they didn't leave it alone. But it's just really interesting that the predominant creation myth, at least in the Western world, was one that was little more than one particular family's record of its travels from, out of antiquity into more modern times. I had to pause because I'm reading the chat, and I'm not sure, trying to coordinate some things here. So the predominant creation myth of the Western world is in many ways a private myth, a myth of a very small group of people. And now here we are in the modern world, with a myth that was never factual. Well, it was factual for a small group of people, but not for humanity at large. No, I haven't, Doc. Yeah, I can see why you would prefer the Greco-Roman myths to ancient Egypt, and that's because the church actually preferred them to ancient Egypt because there was too much feminine in the Egyptian religions. The Egyptian religions were trying to keep it real, and that's one of the reasons why we have been forced to think that we come from this great Greco-Roman civilization, both of them usurpers of an older of an older people. You know, basically the Romans and the Greeks are just a bunch of is a bunch of bullshit in many ways historically. I mean, as far as who they were, what they accomplished, but yeah, the reason why the Egyptian ones were kind of put to the side is because there was too much of the feminine still residing in it, and that's why you prefer the Greco-Roman myths, because you were raised in the derivative of that mindset, of that male god mindset. Yeah, none have I not read the book, Doc, of the alphabet versus the goddess. I've never heard of it. I'm on my third cigarette of the day. So if we're gonna get grounded, we're gonna have to kind of just remember that the way we all kind of lived on this planet was knowing about Mother Earth, and it could be from, you know, kind of just a rudimentary understanding to very comprehensive galactic history, like the mystery schools were teaching. Yeah, I've actually, after I got over whatever that killer flu that's going around, I was able to go back to a sane tobacco consumption, and I do believe there is sane tobacco consumption, and it's somewhere nowhere, you know, around 5 cigarettes a day. And of course, an organic tobacco, because most of the other tobaccos are too laced with chemicals, and they're dangerous because of that. You know, even little bits of it are still quite toxic. And to me, we really can't. It's really difficult to live on a planet when you don't have a connection to it. And we don't have a sense of continuity. I mean, you know, I'm reading all this stuff, and I even, you know, I did a stream on it about the soul traps. The soul traps are for the clueless. If you don't know where you come from and where you're supposed to return, it's pretty easy to scoop your ass up once you leave the body. Real easy to scoop your ass up, because you don't. Who do you belong to? And that's a big part that I think that a lot of people don't get, is that we connect to what endures. We'll use the word eternal just as a kind of placeholder. So how do you connect to the eternal? What's your connection to the eternal? What's your connection to the continuity? The continuity of what was before you took consciousness in the body, and the continuity when your consciousness no longer has a connection with a physical body. In the Nag Hammadi, we read a lot about running back to the pleroma, and from what I can get, and from what John Lash has been able to parse out about what our galactic history is, the pleroma created a panspermia to distribute into the galaxy to see how it worked out. In other words, it's a cosmic experiment. And so the whole, and the nature of this plasm that would arise would be able to hold the consciousness of the pleromic consciousness. In other words, we could wake up and realize, ooh, we got the same spark as what's in the galactic center. But it's pretty clear, at least from the Gnostic teachings that I understand, that we're here to allow that consciousness access to the kenoma, or the phenomenal world. I don't even know what you're writing, JC. I don't know what THST is. I don't know what an SUDR. I don't know what CHST is. So please don't distract me with words that are unintelligible to me. Clueless. So I'm not looking at the live chat for a little bit because I'm looking to have a discussion, not to be distracted. Oh, a little incoming here. That's your call, Niche. We're getting close. So, let me see if I can kind of get on track here. Okay, Doc Illusion. Okay, Doc Illusion to me is asking a good, thoughtful question. Not nice. A good, thoughtful question. And it is, what are my thoughts on us being a mirror of the absolute? This is actually, Doc, that's one of my issues with the Nag Hammadi text, is this obsession with absolutes, pleromas. It's hierarchical. In other words, it's almost like they want to get to the top of the food chain. Who's really the boss? Clearly, if Sophia is not the pleroma herself, then she is not at the top of the food chain, and we want the boss. And they don't, that to me, that's... And so there's a lot, to me, a big problem that I see, especially in the Nag Hammadi text, is this dismissal, basically, in many ways, of Sophia because she's not at the top. And to me, they show a profound misunderstanding of galactic management. And so when it comes to being on this planet, on Earth, Sophia has agency. That's like that. She's the representative of the pleroma and the only one in the kenoma. So I've stated this time and time again. We have a very unique dispensation as Earth humans. It's obvious that this human, our type of form, a humanoid form, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, that template is part of the template that was released in the panspermia. So that basic template is going to have millions, if not billions, of basic iterations of the same thing. But all of that is different on this planet, and I really believe that why we have had so many different galactic visitors, either contributing DNA, messing about, there's all kinds of contributions, because the Earth is the place to get it done. Because Sophia is here, Earth is that magical planet. And then we get to the confusion of what comes out of Genesis and what comes out of the Sumerian texts. And it's pretty clear in the Sumerian text that, there was a group and they were trying to get things done by themselves. The humans that they found on the planet, whatever form, I don't care what's Homo erectus, Homo this, it's obvious Homo sapiens has been around for millions of years. Michael Cremo's proven that beyond a doubt. I'm trying to keep my eyes off the chat so I can stay on thought. Because I seem to be the only one who really cares about where I'm going here. And that makes sense. It's my stream, so I guess I'm the only one who should care. Yeah, she's an emanation, but it appears, I would say, probably the primary emanation is just to Doc. And I don't know, and I'm not sure what your issue is with paganism. Paganism is how we did, that's animism, and at the core of Gnostic belief is animistic. The world is alive. Okay, Niche, do your work, please. It's too bad. I wish Raksha could have got here today. Mentalism, well, I guess, obviously the divine mind, but wisdom is the... Why up? Lee, since you're throwing in neo-paganism, maybe you want to explain why you think that would have been a better term. Because to me, most of anything, including Neoplatonism, is when people want to corrupt something, they create a neo form of it, and make it sound like they've come up with something unique, rather than basically shit all over something that was older and had coherence to it. Before all the what-ifers get to it, all the supposition. Because supposition is even a moron can come up with a what-if. Well, again, to me, all this neo stuff, where it's Neoplatonism or neo-paganism, it's a new group trying to be original, or pretending to be original when they're not. So they come up with neo. No, please. I've always said that. Be provocative. We just, if we're gonna get a little provocative, let's knock the ideas around. That was actually what I always wanted to do here. Is if I put out an idea and somebody thinks, that sucks, challenge me. And I really, I'm probably going to have to move at some point when we get like kind of a core that's really interested in this conversation. I can start having Zoom meetings to really do this. And if we want, we can record them and then put them up later as real discussions. But I would love really to not limit people to just having to type into a chat, because we all know that chat sucks for communication. Hey, Brandon. Good to see you. Oh, excuse me. And now that's one of the things is I also... to me, a big part of all of this mythic, working these mythic things out is you need to journey in these ideas. It is that mapping of let's call it a non-terrestrial landscape that is part of living in the two worlds that we can occupy simultaneously. We have one world that we would, kind of close our eyes, go to sleep, do whatever. There's that, and then of course there's the living dream of Sophia's dreaming on this planet. That's a curious statement, Doc. You said you were an animist before you remembered you were a Gnostic. And, for me, animism is at the core of Gnostic thought because the Sophianic narrative is at the core. And so if the planet itself is alive, if everything is alive, if everything is consciousness, that's animism. So animism and Gnostic creation story are kind of one and the same. I mean, when people ask, the shamans in the Amazon, how did you know out of all these thousands of things that this one contained the DMT and this one contained the MOA inhibitor that would allow the DMT to be absorbed into the stomach, which it normally cannot be because it will get destroyed. How did you guys do that? And they say, well, the spirits of the plants themselves told us. That's how we built our pharmacopoeia. We allowed the plants to tell us what they were for. And of course, I'm quite sure there are certain people who did a certain amount of experimenting, but there were people who could actually communicate with the plants, and that's how so much of the information was given to us, and why people who have new scientific understanding deep in the Amazon jungle have an understanding of plants that basically only a chemist in our civilization could kind of follow. I read that book. Matter of fact, that's the only Graham Hancock book I own is Supernatural. I'm pretty sure that was Supernatural, or was it, or was it the other one? I think Supernatural is one I did. I think I got the one where it's with the woman who's living in Spain 23,000 years ago, and a modern woman. Entangled. That was the one. I would like to read Supernatural. One of the things I don't like about Graham Hancock's fiction is he writes his gory stuff too well. I mean, it's like you're right there in the fight, and I really don't need that kind of realism. He really gets his gory creative writing mojo really worked out, and that's why I guess he wrote the book God of War. Man, after reading what he did in Entangled, I won't go near those books. They would have to be. I mean, again, it's about the human sacrifices of the Aztecs. The last thing I really want is like somebody's rich imagination kind of going through what I can only imagine him talk about, cutting tendons and pericardiums, and I'm quite sure he would wax quite gruesome in that book. Not that it wasn't gruesome. I'm quite sure it's, it wouldn't even be a dramatization of how gruesome it was, but I really don't want to visit that. Especially since apparently in the Popol Vuh, which is one of the remaining texts of the Aztecs, they speak of the fact that before the Before Quetzalcoatl was driven off, Quetzalcoatl, they had a very peaceful, they didn't have human sacrifice. They were much more they were more earth-based. But what's obvious to me about the various more benevolent outposts of the Anunnaki, which Quetzalcoatl would have been one, that they were not, they did not teach about the mother. And that's really what kind of left them open to me to the priesthoods that were coming behind them and haunting them. They didn't give their people a proper creation myth. The creation myth they gave is, we created you. And that's not very grounding. As benevolent as they tried to be, they were withholding. They were withholding the deep creation. And with it seems that with certain populations, they could, initially some of those populations were not fully natural when they first began. I'm just going to stop for a second. If they ever start talking back to you, that's when you need to start worrying. No, that's when you know you've made contact. That's when you know you're re-immersing in reality. So, with the fact that, you know, even benevolent people like Quetzalcoatl, who were really trying to have a nice little domestic farm, very benevolent, but without that grounding and without really teaching them the sciences, oh, I walked into that one. Now people are trying to play games with me. Do as thy will, Ea. I'm not sure what your game is. I mean, this is a chat, and I walked into something. What, are you laying a trap for me? What the fuck are you doing? If you're trying to be an asshole, you're being successful. Okay? If you're trying to be an asshole, you have succeeded. Unless I'm misreading the chat. Anyway. So they withheld them. They didn't let the people really know. So when things started going bad, as they can go occasionally in nature, and especially if you're not fully in touch with nature, you don't have people who can call the rain anymore. You're kind of removed. So, and they haven't been sharing when the next eclipse is coming up. Well, you know something, dude? If you have some stand-up comedy, go find a club and do your stand-up in front of people and not in my chat, all right? The chat is not for you to work out your comedy routines. I hope that's clear. Yeah, I'm not clueless. I'm reading chat, and there is no nuance to it. And again, chat and humor is, oh God. Where is this clown? Here we go. All right, maybe now I can get on. I don't know if for some reason I'm attracting trolls tonight. And if they're not trolls, it's not obvious to me. I mean, I'm trying to actually hold a train of thought, and people are working out their comedy routines. Anyway. So, I guess I'm just going to have to ignore this chat. I'm sorry, people, but I'm trying to get a coherent message across. And if I don't succeed because I'm reading the chat, that's on me. So, point the finger at myself. You need to just ignore the chat and get on with what you're going to tell people. Okay, I hear you. This ginger tea is particularly good. So with regards to the Aztecs, what happened was they didn't have any grounding. They were clueless in creation. And some bad harvests or something come along, something unpleasant. And then you have the whispering class of these dark priests going, oh, the reason the crops didn't come in was because the gods are angry. They want blood. And then, you know, they get a group of morons. There's morons in every group. There's, you know, again, there's certain people are gifted, certain people aren't. And the dark priesthood always go for the, you know, the fallen, so to speak. And they get them all riled up. And, you know, they kind of make them think that people are being irresponsible, that, you know, oh, we'd have better harvests if only we'd cut a few hearts out. And then before you know it, and then they get the rabble all roused up. The people are abandoning us, and then they chase off the good priests. The bad priests move in, and then you have 80,000 people dying on a holiday weekend with their hearts cut out. And then, you know, what happened to Europe was tragic. Rome decided to embrace this strange deity, made it their official religion. You had to believe or you were a heretic. And they went forth with priests and soldiers and started a whole new creation myth. Okay. All right. Is it a little more sane in here? Acknowledge you. I love you. I don't know who's calling anybody small people. We're as big as we want to be, and as small as we choose to be. Man. So it's interesting actually right now looking at the kind of acting out that we're seeing a little bit of tonight. And I think part of this is people are I think people know that things are going to really start changing in profound ways. And I think at the subconscious level, some people are aware of this, and it has them experiencing some anxiety. And I experiencing the anxiety a bit myself. It's really there. Okay. Lee, I will not put up with you being abused like that. So, enough with people thinking that this is their chat. It's our chat. Doesn't belong to anybody. Belongs to us all. And I could certainly see some people were not particularly happy. So, anyway. So I think there is definitely some, yeah, niche, it is crazy. And I think it's very much tied to shit's going to happen. I think Groundhog Day is coming up, which is also known as Candlemas. It's an important transition time. One of the 8 of the year. And I can feel a lot of stuff revving up for it. And then we even have the silliness of politics. And boy, there are some explosive things getting ready to happen. Thank you, Nish. And it's creating some of the some stresses. Okay, I gotta mute my Facebook. Boy, do I hate being on Facebook. There we go. We won't have to hear that nonsense again. Yeah, I have a feeling, Nish, you're with us. Thank you very much for keeping the chat clean. Apparently somebody, as we remove them, they changed their sock. So we'll have a few stinky socks probably coming in here. Oh, really, Lee? This is all about this silliness going on here is about the groovy thing. I mean, she's retired. She was driven off. The trolls were successful. They drove her off. And of course, I'm quite sure they could, whatever. Oh, Doc, you come in basically into this, and I'm very grateful that you continue to join us. It is so not about me, and I apologize for even talking like that. Okay, there's JC again, brown mouth buster John Z. Even I recognize that one. So it's amazing how many socks some people have. But when you're a troll, you need lots of socks. So where was I? Clueless in creation. So What does that mean? Hey, hello, Thomas. What am I trying to imply with clueless in creation? Am I trying to insult people? No. I'm trying to point to what I consider to be an existential issue. And that we belong to a galactic family. And that galactic history was something that was known to the ancient people in different ways. And certain, like the Hopi, apparently, according to the Hopi, they have their origins, somewhere in Sirius? Maybe Pleiades. For me, it's not. For some people, that might be really important. It's, from another star system. But once they get here, they remember where they came from, but they're here now, and Mother Earth is their goddess. That's where they know themselves. That's where they would derive where they would align with, almost like a form of allegiance. Hello, welcome, Crystal. Get this fucking guy out of here. There we go. All right, did that work? Man, certain people keep me busy here. It really is tricky to try and keep hello, Jet Pet. Really tricky to try and keep a train of thought when you have a dedicated asshole. And boy, talk about dedication to being an asshole, man. That is serious dedication. Oh, it's okay. You didn't miss all that much. It's a wild night. Well, we are coming up on a full moon, which, of course, is in 2 days. So things are definitely a little on the wild side. Back to Clueless in creation. So, to me, to walk on this earth with a kind of a connection to both where we come from and where we're going is requires that kind of cosmological map. The organized religions have their truncated map, and then when you get into the Abrahamic mysticism, they get a little more. They start expanding the map in a kind of a metempsychosis kind of way, and so, they have they have their creation story and their myth, at least according to the average everyday understanding, is you get one life, and in the ancient world, reincarnation was the known way of being on this planet. That's because we had a planet that we were constantly coming in back, and we had a connection. But then the Abrahamic religions came along, and they had their one life plan. You have one life, and you either get it right or you get it wrong, and you won't know till you get on the other side and you're judged, and then you get handed a harp or you get sent into the fires. Pretty close to that. I guess at some point in the Middle Ages, the church said, "Oh man, this is a little bit rough. We need a little more room to play here." So they created purgatory. And that's the short and brutal creation of the Abrahamic faiths. You for some reason, some God with a major hard-on for you created you, set up all kinds of strange anti-natural rules, Apparently doesn't like art. Also apparently really didn't like the way he created peepees, because the first thing he was like, oh no, you gotta cut that thing. Or say, well, why didn't you design it the way you wanted it to begin with? Oh, because you didn't design it. Yeah, that's the ticket. That's right. Map is not the territory. The map is kind of how you orient yourself in territory. But in the past, in antiquity, we knew that we just kept on coming and going and coming and going. And very often we would kind of even stay in the same tribe for a long period of time. I'm kind of speaking to Brandon. I'm kind of speaking to this. I think it's that one about do not create images. But anyway, I don't really need to go there. Lee, I actually, a concept like tithing is something I practiced for years, and it's only in the past couple of years when I went with Global Mission of Peace and didn't have my normal earning stream, that things got interrupted. I look forward to getting that going again. That was fun. Yeah, that's where I was going, Brandon. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, it is the religion. I mean, I guess when I look back at the ancient world didn't need something new, and to me, the new was the shock, is why we're now clueless in creation. But again, there's like whole swaths of people on the planet living still very close to the earth lives, and I bet if we sat down and talked to them, they have a very clear understanding of continuity. Okay, I am actually. I'm struggling tonight. I actually think I'm doing a fairly poor job. Toxic empathy. That's a good one, Thomas. I would call toxic empathy kind of like supposedly there were the two sayings over two of the doors at the Oracle of Delphi, and one was know thyself, and the other one is nothing in excess. And that nothing in excess is real important. And empathy could be, is something that can be taken to excess. Empathy is a read. I mean, if you want to take somebody's temperature, whether you're putting it in their ass or their mouth, you leave it in there for 2-3 minutes. Then you pull it out, you get your reading. You don't keep it in the mouth or the butt. And empathy is like that. You want to know the feeling tone of someone. So you would extend yourself, get the feeling tone, and know where they're at, and then you need to pull back out of your empathy and then go into your compassion so that you can have some solutions. Because you won't really, while in empathetic mode, you really won't, it's not solution oriented. Empathy mode is a data stream mode. It's not a data processing mode. Wisdom in the heart, that's where there's some processing goes, and some processing begins in the third chakra. I was actually working with Thomas, so I'm going to keep it toxic empathy. And so for me, toxic empathy would be when people stay in empathic mode too long and then start going through the pathos of another. And kind of like when that point it becomes sympathy, where you now match the trauma or the disturbance. Thank you, Tamu. And so for me, toxic empathy is kind of when you get stuck in other people's empathy, as opposed to kind of, getting a reading, realizing, oh man, this person is in distress. I need to pull out. I certainly am not going to be of any use to somebody in distress, sharing the distress. One of us has to actually get out of distress, get clear, and then at least be able to possibly offer a hand out, some wisdom, whatever that might look like. Welcome, Raksha. That was a good opening. That's a good entrance statement. Immune cells kill, and that is good. And fortunately, in a proper immune system, they'll be immunocompetent. And in a body where self-love gets kind of interrupted, you will have a problem with immunocompetency, and then you have the killer cells attacking healthy cells. Hello, Kalendal. Do they assimilate? Are they Borg? Yeah, Doc, I noticed that when I have tuned in, whether it's while you're live or watching it afterwards, I watch you. I enjoy where you're coming from. I'm really glad that you find the time to come here and join us on Monday nights here. I don't know. Mod City. That was really a good. I got a good kick out of Raksha's entrance. And close this door. It is tricky, Doc. I see you sometimes, trying to struggle to, struggle might be a little bit of a dramatic word. But trying, you're bringing something, and it's, you have a topic, you have reading material, And I see how often you still can't seem to get anybody, people show up, and then you wonder why they showed up, because, you open a stream, you have a topic, um, and then, things take on a life of their own. I'm reading some comments, but I won't comment. I think it's time for a little coffee. Drink it straight out of here. So I had a beautiful time I'm going to switch subjects for a moment since Moose is here. Had a great time at the after show of Moose's finale. Moose had his last Moose live stream for the foreseeable future. And then we had an after show, as we typically do. And I pulled my guitar out and played for a while, and that was a lot of fun. Kalendal fell asleep. So, it was a good time. Yeah, the notifications on YouTube have been really shoddy. I think they're so busy messing with their algorithms. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily something that they're doing on purpose. I just think they're so constantly adjusting their algorithms to do this, to do that, and then they mess things up, and then they have to try and clean it up, or they don't. But they're just mucking about. That's another. I would consider them to be pretty clueless in creation. So when I was just let me put a few comments. I'm going to ask: is anybody in the chat feel like they have an understanding of where they kind of stand on the planet, where they came from before they had a body, some kind of idea of what a good death might be like, what you might do when you drop your body? What is that, that in between life space go on? Do you think there's a continuum, or do you are you more of the kind of the Abrahamic thing where you get one shot, and you don't this group says the rules are this, and this group says the rules are this, and pick one and hope that when you get to the other side that you're not on a barbecue spit. So Lee, you believe in the eternal soul. That's beautiful. So do I. What was it doing before it was Lee? Do you have any sense of that? And do you have any sense of when Lee drops his body, what kind of reception awaits you? The reception is the big part of creation myths. Because in my opinion, the predominant creation myth of the West is one that makes death scary because the afterlife is so terrifying. I'm reading some answers because I did ask for it. Well, I think one of the it's really interesting. Apparently, the Vedas underwent some fair amount of fuckery once the certain groups arrived in India. And that's when I think that they started getting things a little bit confusing. Okay, I'm going to read some things. I like to read some of these people that really say sweet things. Yeah, the Lords of Karma. That's a good one. The Lords of Karma. Notice it's the Lords. But I think that, for me, the concepts like Lords of Karma kind of come with this other construct. And that's part of where I think people have gotten into the whole soul trap thing. Oh, some good stuff going down here. Beautiful, Temu. Yeah, well, belief is tricky because I would say that the way people lived once upon a time was not based on belief; it was based on experience. It's kind of like if it's like kind of like water is wet. I believe water is wet. Oh no, I experience water as being wet. It's not it's kind of how that goes. And that's where really the word Gnostic came from, was that not about belief, but the experience of reality and its greatness. And it was through work between the various teachings and then the journeying and the help. And that's where there was a very specific, apparently, entheogen that they used. It was either based on wheat or barley, and it was the primary psychoactive ingredient would have been something like LSD because it was based on an ergot fungus. And they made a brew from that, but they also added other herbs to that brew. And that seemed to have either enhancing effects, but somehow it made what was possibly could be slightly toxic from the ergot a way of making it safe to drink. And that was what they used. I'm quite sure there were certain mushrooms being used, but from what we can tell, the brew of the Eleusinian mysteries was a barley or a wheat with an ergot fungus growing that was then put in certain herbs and brewed in such a way it was a light alcoholic brew with basically lysergic acid in it. I'm enjoy now. This is this is a sweet chat. Water is beautiful. It's magical. It's mysterious. And apparently it's all over the place. I guess it's in the Thunderbolts projects. And it was I guess Ben. Who's that guy who does the Daily Sunspot report? I can't remember. Ben Davidson. Is that his name? And the whole concept of star water. Water is really, really amazing stuff. I agree with you, Nish. Water is sentient. It yeah. Oh, boy. Now, Tamu said something near and dear to my heart. Because she said, I'm telling you that we will continue to screw ourselves as long as we continue crapping in our water. Who thunk this up? Government thunk that up. Because it's governments that will build, the kind of infrastructure that will collect all the feces, put them into a common area, and then dump them into a river. Archontic planning at its best. And the interesting thing is that certain people, they're talking about, in India, they still crap in the streets. And behind crapping, there is a certain amount of understanding where, yeah, sure, it's really nasty. It is nasty to have shit all over the streets, but it's your shit, and you need to deal with it. Dumping it into our drinking water is no way to deal with shit. And that's why, a simple outhouse. That's what when I first moved to Virginia, that's what I had to use. The person who owned the house, they had their own composting toilet. I had the outhouse. And, there was a wood stove. So your wood stove provides you with wood ash, the equivalent kind of lye. And then you have that little bucket by the hole. And when you're done, you take some of that ash and you sprinkle it over whatever's in there. And you kind of neutralize it. No smell. It works beautifully. And, outhouses are not for reading newspapers. They're for getting the job done. Hello, Reemsy. And, it horrifies me when I, think of all this water that is actually meant to be drunk and is now not drinkable. And that's because and cities are another big problem of that. It's really difficult to pull so many people together into one place with all the shit that will generate and then do something intelligent with it. There really are, the average city, modern cities are too big. There are too many people in one place. And that was part of that, and that is part of kind of what that was actually what happened when they started producing, when this other the non-original human was produced through various means. They weren't wild. I mean, when whatever was being produced by this genetic manipulation was producing a human that was largely to serve what they needed, and it wasn't part of the wild. They didn't understand nature anymore. They had never been in nature. They were created and immediately put into these kind of like little cities. And the cities are where the newly created Homo sapiens domesticus was placed, because they weren't natural. They're kind of a contrivance, and they wouldn't do well in nature because they didn't arise from nature. And but it doesn't matter now, all these thousands of years later, because a couple of generations on this planet, and you're now you're actually one of the organisms, but unfortunately, one of the human organisms never wasn't natural, so it never was in. It didn't know nature as its mother. Didn't really know how to live in it. Its idea of its food source were domesticated pigs, domesticated cattle, sheep, all that domesticated, including the domesticated human. Those were kind of what we get out of Sumeria, is this whole false creation. Thomas, you're kind of hot tonight. I'm enjoying you. I think there will be definitely the coming financial collapse, plus cities sucking, will lead to a great migration, to spreading out and building sustainable villages and towns. Um, I th- but I think with the first collapse, there'll be when the cities first collapse. Rather, the first thing will not be the migration. First thing will be pandemonium. Ah, I wasn't going to prime you, Thomas, but I was waiting for that Bitcoin moment. Hello, Mari. Yeah, it's really interesting about you know like Thomas is saying about the collapse, and Kalendal saying nah, it may never really come, and he's right. It may never really come. Um, but I mean, I certainly don't look forward to any kind of collapse. I would, but I don't know what is the shock to the collective system that gets people focused. Um, because there's nothing like an existential crisis to bring clarity and focus. It's not until things get really really harsh that pretending can finally end. Yeah, I don't see Bitcoin being a shock. I don't even necessarily seeing it. I think it could be what allows a crash to maybe not be so devastating. But it's like what would it take for us to reconfigure things? I mean, I spend a lot of time thinking about living more authentically. And it's I really don't know how we get to a reset without a shock, without a fuse blowing. And I don't like that, but and I'm certainly open. I mean, fortunately, I believe that our Divine Mother is doing something. I'm not quite in touch with it. I get little glimpses. I think it's not meant to be seen. And I think also I think there is still a lot of our own energy feeding into this system of change that is still being processed. I did an interesting thing. I had noticed for some reason that the last when I filter my water, have good water, but I get the chlorine out. And for some reason, my filtered water wasn't tasting quite as much as it was. Kind of, what's going on? Do I need a new filter? So the next time I was pouring my water, I decided to kind of just completely shift and say, okay, I am dreaming with VV, Sophia. And in this dream together, this water I would like to taste better than it's been tasting. So I want to kind of get into this magical space and pour this water from the place of a lucid dream. And as this water's going in my lucid dreaming, this water tastes better because I'm dreaming this, and I can have agency in my dream. And the water tasted better. And so I said, well, maybe you're imagining it. I don't care. It tasted better. I mean, that my experience was the water now tasted smooth and sweeter. And that's all I wanted my water to do, was taste smooth and sweet. And just how interesting it was to see the intent and effort that was really required for me to enter into lucid dreaming as an experience in life. And it was, you would think, oh, it's just a slam dunk. Oh, you just do it. But no, it was a real configuration of the will. That's right, Reemsy. I agree. Yeah, again, it's the whole. See, this is the whole thing about when people is magic real. It's basically it's in the proving, where if you want a result, you do something, and then you get the result that you wanted. That's proving. And one of the people I really enjoy listening to just around magic and its proving is Gordon White. Gordon White, he's very much into chaos magic, not my favorite kind of magic. And he mucks around. He mucks around with the bad boys a bit. But he's doing it in a really impish way, and I really commend him. He seems to be giving the archons a run for the money, and it seems like a few of these chaos magicians are messing with the archons a bit, and I think it's pretty funny. But there's that little bits of magical proving, and I almost invariably, if I decide, okay, we're going to do some real magic here, so that means we're going to get a little focused. It isn't, just thought wisps. It's focused. But I haven't done anything that I really brought into what I wanted, little things to change that was not effective. And Gordon White also did a beautiful talk. I guess it was on the Higher Side Chat. So I thought he handled the concept of panspermia very well. And I just really, if there's somebody, he has Rune Soup, and he's a really interesting fellow. He's funny. He's from Australia, but he educated enough where you can almost think he's English. He's impish. He's playful. He's got trickster energy. And he's for real. He's for real. And I can enjoy him because he plays around with Gnostic thought. So he's somebody he's somebody who kind of allows magic and left brain processing he makes them live side by side very well. I highly recommend Gordon White. If you want to hear somebody who's doing magic, knows what they're doing, and can speak about it eloquently with others who know what they're doing. And like I said, I'm not a chaos magic person. I'm a natural magic person. I like to work with nature spirit. I like to work with what Mama brought. Gordon likes to mess with the extras. But the way he's messing with them amuses me, because I know that one of the reasons that the Archons gave us their dark magic, well, first of all, was to open up lots of portals so they could have access. But also because they study us and they mimic us. And so if they can get us to, get into these little magical tete-a-tetes with them, they get to learn about us. And the more they get to learn about us, the more they can try and trick some of the lesser skilled magicians. And so to me, the idea of humans who are so superior to to that whole clown group, Yaldabaoth and all his clowns. I mean, when it comes to our creativity and who we really are. So when somebody like a Gordon White seems to be messing with them, I love it. What happened to come on, ladies? Guys are getting a little distracted here on Bitcoin. There we go. There's Tamu. Yeah, I have been very I have to, once again, with the whole divine feminine at the center of Gnostic cosmology, I have to admit the ladies have been carrying great dignity over these weeks in the stream. I'm quite pleased, and of course my broster always does a great job. And now, other thoughtful people, but you ladies have really, it's been a joy to share a live stream and in the question, can't you hear me, Gnostic? I feel like you can hear me, Gnostic, and I can hear you, Gnostic, too. And that's the other thing about, I guess, with the thing is, to me, it's all about Mother Earth. It's not any particular way that you need to approach it. I think some are more comprehensive and help with the greater connecting to the greater galaxy. But if it's just as simple as keeping the earth clean and keeping your water clean and honoring your food and honoring, the standing people, that's the trees, the plants, honoring nature, then that's a beautiful system. One based on love of our home and knowing that we have a home. And that it's a very special home, which is why I believe there's been so much interest over countless millennia, maybe even millions of years, in the other humanoid species in our galaxy coming to this planet. I think some of them are more aware of others. From what I can tell of the Anuna gods, the males were clueless, including Enki. But the priestesses did know about the earth, because there's records, especially in this one book I have, Eden, of actual Sumerian or Akkadian texts of them praying to the earth as they planted things, that because they knew that she was the one they needed to appeal to have a good harvest. So the priestesses, they knew of Mama, but their brothers or whatever, they didn't. Brandon, if there's a Mother Earth energy consciousness, is there a Father Earth energy? To me, they're one and the same. I never forget that all of these aeons are androgynous. I never forget that I'm androgynous. So if I don't forget my own androgyny, it'd be pretty hard for me to forget, not remember that the greater beings are androgynous. And then there's a little bit of a bias. But, originally, the original way it was kind of broken off was Mother Earth and Father Sky. And Father Sky was our origin. We can bring the pleroma here. Everything originates from the galactic center in this cosmology. And so the kind of the poetry of that was Father Sky. I like that poetry. It works fine. And it also kind of works with the Gnostic intel of the panspermia going out to conduct, basically to see how does our germ, we're going to place our life force germ into a capsule so we can put it out into the canoma, and therefore going to rise in different situations, and then see what produces that. And part of the Gnostic cosmology, part of the Gnostic myth was things weren't, to the wisdom goddess, to the Aeon Sophia, when she was still in the pleroma, she was a little concerned because there was a lot of not enough wisdom would be what I would think. And she was concerned. It's like, we configured this here, we sent it all out, but looks like we need a little more wisdom in there because things could be better. And I think from there is then we start getting into how and why she broke off. Well, that's it. That Tamu. It's androgynous, leaning one way or another. And in her syzygy with Thelete, which is the wisdom and intent, and so the intent kind of occupied the more yang aspect, and that the wisdom was the more yin aspect. And that's actually why I like terms like yin and yang, because then it gets into the qualities. You can get into qualities of yin and yang without having to genderize it. It doesn't have to be genderized. And yeah, I mean, when in my meditative state, I'm androgynous. When I go traveling, I travel as an androgyne. I don't travel as any kind of. I have no real sense of gender in my journeys. Just a sense of potency. And to me, that yin-yang nature is what creates the dynamism, which creates the equivalent of high pressure and low pressure systems, where things become dynamic. No, I don't travel with my cock out. That would be trolling. Yeah, when I embrace Sophia, it really is like being held in a bosom. There is something, it feels like a mother. That's all I can say. It really feels like a mother. But a mother of, not like a human mother. So, I mean, yeah, it's just so yummy. It is so yummy. When you kind of can really get into the agape of it all, and then you get into like this cascading agape of just, it's like bliss building on bliss, building on bliss. You actually, I mean, I remember having to almost like interrupt it because it just was almost excruciatingly delicious. Brandon, when humor is obvious, like when it's really obvious humor, then it works for me. There are certain it's interesting, Tamu. There are some times I'm able to really get words for things. But I have to be in a in a kind of a straddling consciousness state. And tonight, I have to admit, tonight was, I'm a little, I don't know, to me, this has probably been my worst stream as far, personally, like me sitting here and trying to be coherent. But, you know, of course, we got a little jovial, we'll call it. As Socrates is a fun. I mean, I think Socrates was great, but when you read the Socratic method, I can understand why they wanted to kill him. He was so fucking annoying. He really was. Brilliant, but man. He was funny, though, too. You know, the Shiva energy, the Kali energy, that is something that I've noticed in just the last couple of weeks has been, when, you know, kind of very much, usually before I go to sleep, I do a good, you know, mama visit. And it was in the past week or so that the Kali aspect has been kind of sharing in the energies. It feels there's some angry energy going on with Mama. And I just wonder how that displeasure is going to manifest. Thank you, Tamu, for being with us. Yes, the Bone Mother. I don't know, I'm quite sure some of you might be aware of a powerful ritual that Raksha did I think it was 2 streams ago. The Bone Mother, which is another form of Kali Ma. And the beauty of one way of cleansing. Part of the beauty was in recognizing our immortality. Because in the ritual, it basically calls on Kali Ma to kill it, you know, in paraphrasing, to kill us all. That those of us who belong in the mix will know that we will arise, and those who don't belong will no longer be in the mix. Something like that. And I think that, to me, that's quite beautiful, to just basically say, Bone Mother, destroy us all, and then us wholesome ones will resurrect ourselves, you know, rise ourselves up again. I don't want to use things like resurrect. And I just, you know, this just very beautiful. It's almost as if, like, if for some reason I don't belong in the next iteration, and so be it. I will accept the wisdom of the Mother. Okay, rhetorical questions? The Bone Mother is shook. Mommy dearest. So we're kind of coming on to 2 hours. I think I'll keep it at 2 hours tonight, especially since, I mean, because, once the stream ends, this will be a video to watch. And the chat, once we got it cleaned out, really came alive. And it was actually quite coherent and it's still basically coherent. Looks like Thomas got the Bitcoin out of his system and is kind of coming back into a conversation with the rest of us. So Doc, by the way, Doc Illusion, that's the name of his YouTube channel, and he approaches the subject with sincerity and a great sense of heart. And he stays at it. So, and in certain ways, he has a good way of connecting with people that I might not have. So, we're getting ready to wind down, and so if anybody, just kind of like, we're getting ready to close up. So I'm going to focus on the chat. And I would like to thank, by name, Doc, Lee, Mari, TK, Lee, Raksha, Spec, Niche, Jet Pet, Tamu, Reemsey, Brandon, Kalendal, of course, Raksha, oh, I could also go to participants, huh? No. Where is that? There we go. Participants. Doc Illusion, Jetpack, Kalendal, Lee, Mari, Rakshas, Niche, and Thomas. Come on. All right, everybody. So, lots of love. Let's stay as sane as we can. Try to give yourself some clues about creation, and then live them. Journey on them. Empower them. Empower yourself. So, toodles until next time.